When was the last time you felt sleepy while you were behind the wheel? On today's episode, we'll discuss drowsy driving, the causes and consequences, and some ways to avoid it. I'm Jay, and this is Somnilopod. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I'm so glad you joined me. I have kind of a serious topic to discuss today. This is one of those topics that we're all aware of, that we have all been exposed to, and we've all experienced. But for some reason, it just always feels like it is so heavy whenever I talk about this. The topic, of course, is drowsy driving and some of the consequences of it. A recent study from 2021 by the AAA Foundation for Traffic Safety estimated that there were about 328,000 drowsy driving crashes annually. 328,000. And of those crashes, they resulted in 6,000 fatalities each year, just because somebody was sleepy behind the wheel. And it's not necessarily the person that was driving that is the result of the fatality. Sometimes it's the person that's driving that causes the accident and kills someone else. It's tragic, and it's avoidable. Other information regarding numbers with regard to drowsy driving, estimates show that people who snore and slept less than 6 hours per night were more likely to report having fallen asleep while driving. And 1 in 25 adult drivers aged 18 years or older report having fallen asleep while driving in the previous 30 days. Now, we have all, as I mentioned, probably done this. I know that I have done it myself. I remember specifically one time I was working night shift and I was headed home in the morning. I was actually driving on the highway. I headed east. So I was driving into the sun, and I remember specifically noting that the sun was at a certain height, and then the next moment, the sun was even higher. And I hadn't noticed any of the intervening time, and I was further down the highway. So I had what researchers and what sleep experts call a microsleep. These are periods that happen to us when we're drowsy, especially when we're doing a mundane task like driving, where our body actually goes to sleep. Your eyes may still be open, but your brain is actually in sleep. They can last for several seconds. And if you think about it, at the rate of speed that you're going, 60, 65 miles an hour for just a few seconds, that's the length of a football field. Imagine what can happen in that short amount of time. So who are more likely to experience episodes like this? Well, I have discussed, and the whole part of the whole reason, behind the podcast and the YouTube channel and all of the information that I'm getting out there is to point out that we as a society are sleep deprived. So people who are getting less sleep tend to be more likely to have reports of drowsy driving. And it's even not necessarily a lot of sleep. So I'm going to ask you, how much would you think? So in a typical night, say you lose 3 hours of sleep, 4 hours, 5 hours. How much time do you think of lost sleep can affect your ability to maintain alertness behind the wheel? It is 1 hour. 1 single hour of lost sleep can impair your ability to drive. So all of us need to focus on getting more sleep. So that is one demographic that can experience this. Also, commercial drivers, people who drive for a living. I know that there has been a lot of work on the part of employers and the Department of Transportation to limit the amount of time that people are behind the wheel and to ensure that they're getting enough sleep and that any sort of issues with regard to their sleep are taken care of. There's been a lot of work over the years, but these people are still doing a very mundane task, often at night, to get the supplies where they need to go. So they're at higher risk for driving drowsy. And, like myself, shift workers. People who are working either a night shift or a long shift tend to be more susceptible. And those people who have a sleep disorder, sleep apnea in particular. It's one of the areas that the Department of Transportation has focused on, is making sure that drivers who do have sleep apnea have it treated and treated successfully, and it is maintained through their licensure. It's also important to pay attention to the medications that we take. So drivers who use a medication that make them sleepy may be more susceptible to driving when they're drowsy. And interestingly enough, teenagers, 78% of teen driving fatalities have nothing to do with drugs or alcohol. It's because of sleepiness or inattention. Now, when do these things usually occur? So studies have shown that most of these accidents occur between midnight and 6 a.m. and in the late afternoon. Now, these are both times when your circadian rhythm, your body clock, is at its lowest. So they're times when we are inherently sleepy. So it's going to be important to pay attention to when we're driving. Also, most of those reports of accidents involve a single driver, somebody who's by themselves in the vehicle. And usually what they see is that there is no evidence whatsoever of someone trying to correct their driving. So for example, if they slide off the road, there is no evidence that they tried to brake or tried to turn the steering wheel because they were asleep at the time. And these accidents often occur on rural roads and highways where things can be very monotonous. Now, how in the world are we supposed to figure out a way to avoid having this happen? Well, one of the best things you can do to avoid driving drowsy is actually before you even get in the car. Make sure you're getting enough sleep. Adequate sleep is going to be one of the best ways to avoid driving drowsy. So plan ahead. Before you're going to start a long trip, make sure that you have mapped out the route that you're going to take so that you're not distracted by things. Also, check to make sure medications that cause you to be drowsy, wait to take those until you get there. If there's something that you take at a specific time, you can postpone that time to get through your drive. Also, as I mentioned, if you're going to be driving during those peak periods of sleepiness, midnight to 6 a.m. and or the late afternoon, just make sure that you're staying vigilant, and it's going to be best to try to have somebody else in the car with you if you can. So for those long trips, budget yourself some time to rest. And I know this just from my own experience. For many years, I have taken long vacations or taken a long drive with my sisters for vacation. And granted, we're all old, so we tend to stop every couple of hours because somebody has to go to the bathroom. But it's still a good idea because the driver gets the opportunity to stretch their legs, to get some air, to walk around, to become refreshed. And that way they can focus a little more normally on their task at hand. And ultimately, just remember that if you start to find yourself being sleepy or your eyes drooping while you're driving, do your best to avoid that situation. Get off the road. Take a few minutes, take a short nap if you have to. If you're forced into a situation where you have to be driving during those times when you're going to be most sleepy, then give yourself the opportunity to rest, and that will help you be refreshed enough to hopefully avoid any sort of accidents and injury to yourself or others on the road. I hope this has been beneficial for you. Please remember to subscribe and like and check things out on YouTube and Instagram and Twitter. Until next time, please remember to keep sleep a priority. Thanks so much.